The story begins inside a strange correctional facility called the Vertical Self-Management Center. A man named Goreng regains consciousness in a bare concrete room marked with the number 48. The cell is incredibly simple, containing only 2 beds, a sink, and a large square opening in the center. His roommate, an older inmate named Trimagasi, explains that the opening is known as the pit. The prison is made up of countless levels stacked on top of one another, with 2 prisoners assigned to each floor. Everyone is identified by an assigned name rather than their real identity. Soon, Goreng witnesses the prison's unusual feeding system. Once a day, a large platform loaded with food descends through every level. Prisoners are given only a short amount of time to eat before the platform continues its journey downward. The system creates a harsh reality. Inmates on the upper floors enjoy an abundance of food, while those on the lower levels are often left with almost nothing. To make matters worse, every month the prisoners are randomly relocated to different floors, meaning their fate constantly changes. When the food platform arrives for the first time, Goreng is surprised by the enormous feast spread across it. Since he isn't hungry, he decides not to take anything, believing the food should be left for the people below. Trimagasi, however, has a very different outlook. After stuffing himself with food, he deliberately spits onto the table. According to him, the inmates above have likely already done the same, making kindness or consideration meaningless in this place. Later, Goreng attempts to save an apple for later. But as soon as the platform disappears, the temperature inside the room begins rising rapidly. Within moments, the cell becomes unbearably hot. Trimagasi explains the reason keeping food after the platform leaves is strictly forbidden. If prisoners try to hide food, the prison's punishment system activates. Realizing the danger, Goreng quickly throws the apple away before the heat becomes deadly. The incident reminds him of the interview he attended before entering the facility. During the process, he was required to sign an agreement acknowledging that he would remain inside for the entire duration of his sentence, with no possibility of leaving early. Each inmate is also allowed to bring a single personal item into the prison. While many choose practical tools or weapons, Goreng selected something unusual: a copy of the novel Don Quixote. Unlike most of the prisoners, Goreng entered the facility by choice, in exchange for spending 6 months inside the mysterious prison. He was promised an officially recognized diploma upon completion. The following day, the food platform arrives once again, but Goreng still refuses to eat. Watching this, Trimagasi can't understand his behavior. In his eyes, having a position as high as floor 48 is a luxury, and Goreng is wasting a valuable opportunity. Curious about his cellmate's past, Goreng asks how he ended up in the prison. Trimagasi then shares the bizarre chain of events that brought him there. According to him, everything began with a television commercial. The advertisement featured an impressive kitchen knife, and he was so fascinated by it that he immediately bought one. However, only a few days later, another commercial appeared promoting an upgraded version of the same knife. The discovery filled him with uncontrollable anger. In a fit of rage, he grabbed his television and hurled it out of his apartment window. Unfortunately, the television struck a man walking below, causing his death. As a result, Trimagasi was arrested and eventually given 2 options: spend time in a psychiatric institution or enter the mysterious vertical prison. He chose the prison and has been trapped there ever since. While discussing the facility, Trimagasi reveals that the lowest floor he has ever been assigned to was level 132. Even from there, he could still see additional levels stretching downward, proving that the prison extends far deeper than most inmates can imagine. He explains that food rarely survives the journey to those depths. By the time the platform reaches the lower sections, almost everything has already been consumed. Surviving a single month there is difficult enough, but being assigned to extremely low levels in consecutive months can become a death sentence. The thought terrifies Goreng. Believing that cooperation could solve the problem, he begins speaking to inmates on nearby floors whenever the platform passes. He urges them to take only what they need so that everyone below has a chance to eat. His appeals, however, are met with mockery and indifference. Nobody seems interested in helping strangers they will never meet. Trimagasi finds Goreng's optimism amusing. Instead of supporting the idea, he demonstrates exactly how little respect exists inside the prison by urinating through the opening onto the floor beneath them. He then reveals the personal item he chose to bring into the prison. Unlike Goreng's book, Trimagasi selected the very knife that started his downfall, the same television advertised knife that ultimately changed his life forever. As the days pass, Goreng eventually gives in and starts eating from the descending platform. He realizes that surviving in this place may require abandoning some of the ideals he arrived with. During one of the platform's daily visits, a shocking sight catches his attention. A prisoner suddenly plummets through the central shaft from one of the upper levels. The body disappears into the darkness below. Disturbed by what he has witnessed, Goreng looks to Trimagasi for an explanation. Surprisingly, Trimagasi treats the incident as something completely ordinary. According to him, people falling through the shaft happens frequently, and nobody in the prison ever investigates or intervenes. Later, while discussing their experiences, Trimagasi casually talks about the many levels he has lived on over the years. He confidently predicts that the two of them will remain cellmates after the next monthly reassignment. This statement makes Goreng connect several unsettling clues. If cellmates stay together after relocation, then Trimagasi's stories about surviving on the lowest levels suddenly take on a darker meaning. Goreng realizes that when food became unavailable, Trimagasi must have survived by consuming the remains of his former roommate. Not long afterward, the platform arrives carrying a familiar figure. A woman named Miharu is sitting on it as it descends through the prison. Goreng immediately notices that she is covered with injuries and scars. Concerned for her safety, he wonders why she keeps risking her life this way. Trimagasi dismisses his concerns and advises him not to get involved. He explains that Miharu travels through the prison every month searching for a child she believes is trapped somewhere inside the facility. To increase the odds of being assigned near the child, she reportedly eliminates every cellmate she is paired with. Trimagasi even suspects that the prisoner they saw falling earlier was one of her victims. Wanting to distance himself from her actions, Trimagasi insists that he is different. He claims he never murdered anyone. In his version of events, he merely survived by eating the bodies that ended up on his floor after already being dead. As the platform continues downward, inmates on the next level attempt to take advantage of Miharu. Seeing this, Goreng shouts warnings and demands that they leave her alone. His concern proves unnecessary. Miharu is more than capable of defending herself. Within moments, she overpowers the men who confront her and continues her search without hesitation before riding the platform further down. Eventually, another month comes to an end. As usual, a sleeping gas fills the prison, rendering everyone unconscious, while the administration secretly relocates the inmates to new levels. When Goreng opens his eyes again, panic immediately sets in. He discovers that he has been tightly restrained to his bed. Looking around, he notices the number on the wall level 171. Trimagasi calmly explains what he has done. Since they have been assigned to an extremely low floor where no food is likely to arrive, he decided to take precautions. In his mind, Goreng's youth and strength make him a potential threat, so tying him up was the safest option. Throughout the prison, terrified screams echo from level to level as inmates wake up and discover their new positions. The sounds reveal just how many people have been relocated to desperate situations. Then the platform finally arrives. As expected, it carries absolutely nothing. Not a single piece of food remains. The feast that once overflowed from the upper levels has been completely consumed long before reaching floor 171, leaving the prisoners below with only the reality of starvation. After more than a week without food, the situation on floor 171 becomes desperate. Trimagasi finally decides that he can no longer wait to survive. Despite Goreng's attempts to reason with him, Trimagasi moves forward with a plan that shocks him. Just as the situation reaches a critical point, the food platform suddenly arrives carrying Miharu. Recognizing Goreng, Miharu immediately realizes what's happening. She confronts Trimagasi and a violent struggle breaks out between them. In the end, Trimagasi is defeated, and Miharu frees Goreng from the restraints that had kept him trapped. Exhausted and weakened, Goreng soon loses consciousness. When he eventually wakes up, he finds himself back on the bed. His injuries have been treated as best as possible, and Miharu is still in the room. Without saying a single word, she helps him survive the crisis by sharing what little resources are available. Before continuing her journey through the prison, Miharu also leaves him with water. As always, she remains silent and mysterious, disappearing once again as the platform descends into the darkness below. The days that follow are extremely difficult. Isolated and struggling to stay alive, Goreng is forced to confront the brutal reality of the prison. The experience begins taking a heavy toll on both his body and his mind. As time passes, loneliness and starvation blur the line between reality and imagination. Goreng starts seeing visions of Trimagasi, who appears to him like a voice inside his head. These hallucinations constantly challenge his choices, forcing him to question what he has become in order to survive. Trapped in the endless depths of the prison, Goreng slowly realizes that the greatest battle is no longer against hunger, it's against losing his humanity. As another month comes to an end, the prison's sleeping gas once again fills the cell, sending everyone into unconsciousness. During his sleep, Goreng experiences a strange dream in which he imagines himself sharing a peaceful moment with a woman, while Miharu silently watches from a distance. When he finally wakes up, reality turns out to be much less romantic. The sensation he felt wasn't coming from a woman at all. It was a dog licking his face. Looking around the room, Goreng is stunned by another surprise. His new cellmate is Imogwiri, the very woman who conducted his admission interview before he entered the prison. The dog, she explains, is the personal item she chose to bring with her. More importantly, they have been assigned to level 33, a position far better than the nightmare Goreng endured the previous month. Seeing Imogwiri again brings back memories of their first meeting. Goreng recalls how unusual the interview felt, especially the long, uncomfortable pauses she made between questions. At the time, he thought little of it, But now everything seems far more unsettling. Their conversation soon turns to the prison itself. Imoguri reveals that she entered voluntarily, just as Goreng did. However, she insists she never realized the facility was as deadly as it truly is. According to the information she received, the prison contains 200 levels. When Goreng argues that there isn't enough food to support everyone, Imoguri disagrees. In her view, the problem isn't the quantity of food but the behavior of the prisoners. She believes there would be enough for everyone if each person took only what they needed. Imoguri dreams of creating a chain of cooperation throughout the prison. If every inmate acted responsibly, she believes the entire system could function fairly. Goreng finds her optimism difficult to believe. After everything he has witnessed, the idea of spontaneous solidarity feels almost impossible. Still, he wonders whether a shocking event could force people to change their behavior. Their discussion eventually shifts to Miharu and her search for a child. Goreng suggests that perhaps the death of a child could inspire change, but Imoguri immediately dismisses the possibility. As far as she knows, prison regulations would never allow anyone under 16 years old to enter the facility. When the food platform arrives later that day, Imoguri practices exactly what she preaches. She eats only a modest portion, feeds her dog, and carefully organizes the remaining food into equal servings. As the platform descends to the next floor, she attempts to communicate with the inmates below. She asks them to eat only the portions she prepared, and then create the same number of rations for the level beneath them. Her hope is that the message will continue spreading downward from floor to floor. The response is exactly what Goreng expected. The prisoners ignore her completely. Some mock her, others insult her, and most simply take whatever they want. Watching this happen, Goreng argues that the administration never intended for cooperation to succeed. In his opinion, the entire structure of the prison is designed to encourage selfishness and conflict. Imoguri strongly disagrees. Having worked for the administration before entering the prison, she refuses to believe that everyone involved is corrupt or malicious. Goreng counters by pointing out something she may not want to admit: her former position gave her advantages that ordinary prisoners never had. After all, she was able to choose her cellmate, a privilege unavailable to most inmates. Despite the setbacks, Imoguri refuses to abandon her mission. Day after day, she continues preparing food portions and pleading with the lower levels to cooperate. Unfortunately, every attempt ends the same way. Her words vanish into the darkness below, ignored by prisoners who have long since stopped believing in fairness, trust, or sacrifice. 2 weeks pass, and Goreng's patience finally reaches its limit. Day after day, he listens to Imoguri's attempts to convince the lower levels to ration their food, but the results remain disappointing. Deciding that kindness alone isn't enough, Goreng takes a different approach. The next time the platform arrives, he delivers a warning to the inmates below. If they refuse to respect the portions prepared by Imoguri, he threatens to contaminate the food before it reaches them. Unlike appeals to fairness and cooperation, the threat proves surprisingly effective. Word quickly spreads from level to level, and for the first time, prisoners begin following the instructions. The message starts traveling downward through the prison, creating a level of order that had previously seemed impossible. Sometime later, an unexpected sight appears on the descending platform. Miharu arrives once again, but this time she is unconscious. Concerned about her condition, Goreng and Imoguri carefully lift her from the platform and place her on one of the beds. While they focus on helping her recover, the Imoguri's dog quietly takes advantage of the distraction and grabs some food from the platform. The moment the platform disappears, the consequences become apparent. The temperature inside the cell begins dropping rapidly, signaling that food has been left behind in violation of the prison's rules. Realizing the danger, Goreng rushes after the dog and manages to recover the stolen food before the punishment system can become fatal. Only then does the temperature return to normal. As night falls, Goreng allows Miharu to rest on the bed while he settles on the floor to sleep. The following morning, he is awakened by the sound of shouting and struggling. Startled, he discovers that a confrontation has broken out between Miharu and Imoguri. The source of the conflict quickly becomes clear. During the night, Miharu had killed the dog for food. The loss devastates Imoguri. The animal was more than a companion. It was the one personal possession she had chosen to bring into the prison. For her, the dog's death represents yet another reminder of how the facility destroys compassion and forces people into impossible choices. As tensions rise inside the cell, Goreng witnesses once again how survival in the vertical self-management center continues to push every prisoner closer to their breaking point. The following day, Miharu recovers enough to continue her journey and once again rides the platform deeper into the prison. After she leaves, Goreng tells Imoguri about Miharu's belief that her missing child is somewhere inside the facility. However, Imoguri immediately challenges that story. According to the prison records she remembers, Miharu entered the prison alone nearly a year earlier. Before arriving, she had worked as an actress and, like Goreng, had volunteered to enter the facility. The conversation soon becomes more personal. Imoguiri admits that she spent years working for the administration and helped send people into the prison without fully understanding what life inside was actually like. Now, trapped within the system she once served, she carries a deep sense of guilt. She also reveals that she has been battling a serious illness for several years. When she learned that her condition was unlikely to improve, she chose to enter the prison believing she could do something meaningful and help change the system from within. But after everything she has witnessed, that hope is fading. As their final days on level 33 pass, Imoguiri becomes increasingly withdrawn. Even when food is available, she struggles to find the motivation to eat. Goreng encourages her to take advantage of their fortunate position, reminding her that the next monthly reassignment could place them much lower. Imoguiri, however, seems emotionally exhausted and spends most of her time lying silently on the bed. Eventually, the end of the month arrives. As always, the sleeping gas fills the prison, and the inmates are relocated to new levels. When Goreng wakes up, he immediately notices something shocking. The number on the wall now reads 202. The discovery proves that the prison extends far deeper than Imoguiri ever believed. Her estimate of 200 levels was wrong, meaning countless additional prisoners may exist below. The realization becomes a devastating blow. Overwhelmed by everything that has happened, and having lost the hope that once motivated her, Imoguiri is no longer able to continue. Goreng awakens to find that she has died during the night, leaving him alone once again in the endless depths of the vertical self-management center. Left alone on one of the lowest levels, Goreng struggles to cope with both hunger and isolation. During this difficult period, the visions that have been haunting him return. In his mind, Trimigasai reappears and questions how long he can survive. Soon, Imoguiri and even her dog join these imagined conversations, becoming voices that constantly challenge his decisions. Determined not to lose himself completely, Goreng searches for ways to stay focused. He distracts himself by reading and revisiting his memories, while also marking the passing days on the wall so he can maintain a sense of time. But as the weeks drag on, survival becomes his only priority. Eventually, desperation forces him to make choices he once believed he would never consider. The experience leaves him physically alive, but emotionally scarred. At the end of the month, the familiar sleeping gas fills the prison once again, and another reassignment takes place. When Goreng wakes up, he is relieved to discover that he has been moved to level 6. After the horrors of the lower floors, the new position feels almost like a reward. For a brief moment, he imagines Maharu standing beside him, but the image quickly fades. It is only a dream. His actual cellmate is a man named Baharat. Baharat's chosen item is a long rope, and unlike many prisoners, he still believes escape is possible. Convinced that they are close enough to the top, he repeatedly asks the inmates above for assistance. Eventually, the prisoners on level 5 pretend to cooperate. They agree to hold the rope while Baharat attempts to climb upward. However, their promise turns out to be nothing more than a cruel joke. The humiliating prank catches Baharat completely off guard, causing him to lose his grip and fall back toward the cell. Fortunately, Goreng reacts quickly enough to stop him from being seriously injured, although the rope itself disappears down the shaft. The incident leaves Baharat disappointed, but not defeated. As the days pass, Goreng and Baharat spend their time discussing the prison and listening to the constant noise coming from nearby levels. Meanwhile, Goreng's hallucinations continue to appear. The imagined versions of Trimigasai and Imoguiri seem to represent opposing sides of his conscience, one focused on survival, the other on responsibility and change. During one of these conversations, Goreng reflects on everything he has witnessed throughout the prison. He remembers Imoguiri's belief that people would never cooperate on their own and begins thinking about a more direct solution. A bold idea starts taking shape. He proposes that he and Baharat ride the platform downward themselves, instead of asking prisoners to ration their food. They would actively enforce it, ensuring that enough food remains for every level below. Goreng explains that he has spent considerable time estimating the prison's size. Based on his observations from the deepest levels and the speed of the platform, he believes there are roughly 250 floors. If they can control consumption level by level, they might finally prove that fair distribution is possible. Baharat is inspired by the plan and immediately agrees to help. Knowing the journey will be dangerous, the two men begin preparing for it. They dismantle parts of a bed and turn the metal pieces into makeshift tools for protection. Together, they get ready for a mission that could either transform the prison system or cost them their lives. With their plan finally in motion, Goreng and Baharat climb onto the food platform and begin their journey downward through the prison. When they reach level 7, Goreng immediately establishes a rule. The inmates on these upper floors are not the ones suffering from starvation. They have regular access to food and are far more likely to eat again in the coming days. Because of that, he insists that nobody should take anything from the platform. At first, Baharat feels uncomfortable enforcing such strict measures. Some of the prisoners on the higher levels are familiar faces, including people who had previously interacted with him. However, when one inmate reacts with anger and entitlement, Bharat begins to understand exactly why Goreng believes the system can never change through polite requests alone. Together, they stand their ground and prevent anyone from taking more food than necessary. Floor after floor, the platform continues its descent. The pair repeats the same message over and over, using a combination of determination, warnings, and persistence to preserve as much food as possible for the levels below. Several floors later, Bharat encounters someone he deeply admires, an elderly man named Brambang. Unlike most prisoners, Brambang immediately understands what they are trying to accomplish. He praises their effort, but also offers a sobering perspective. Even if they manage to distribute the food fairly, he doubts the administration itself will care. Institutions like this rarely respond to logic alone. According to Brambang, what they need is a message, something impossible to ignore. The idea sparks a new discussion between Goreng and Bharat. As they examine the dishes on the platform, they realize one item stands out from all the others, a perfectly prepared panna cotta. Unlike the ordinary food scattered across the feast, the dessert represents luxury, precision, and status. If they can deliver it untouched through the entire prison, it could become proof that the prisoners were capable of self-control and cooperation. The panna cotta quickly becomes the centerpiece of their mission. From that point forward, Goreng and Bharat guard it carefully while continuing their journey. Level after level, they protect the remaining food, confront resistant inmates, and push deeper into the prison than either of them has ever gone before. As the platform descends into increasingly desperate sections of the facility, their task grows more difficult. Yet the two men refuse to abandon the mission, believing that the untouched panna cotta may become the symbol capable of carrying their message all the way to the people who truly run the prison. As the platform descends past level 50, Goreng and Bharat finally begin distributing the food they have been protecting. For the first time, they encounter prisoners who genuinely need help. Many of the inmates are overwhelmed with gratitude, having gone far too long without a proper meal. The deeper they travel, the harsher the conditions become. On level 97, they discover an elderly prisoner who is extremely weak, along with a young man whose behavior suggests he has severe cognitive difficulties. Wanting to help, Goreng offers food to the older prisoner. However, the younger inmate responds with chilling indifference, making it clear that survival on these lower levels has destroyed any sense of morality. As they continue downward, they reach a floor occupied only by a lifeless body. The absence of any living prisoners surprises Goreng. More importantly, the platform doesn't stop for its usual 2-minute interval. Instead, it immediately continues its descent. The moment forces Goreng to reconsider his calculations. If the platform can skip entire levels and still continue downward, then the prison may be far larger than he originally estimated. Soon afterward, they arrive at another occupied floor and discover a violent struggle already taking place. 2 inmates are attacking Miharu. Without hesitation, Goreng and Bharat rush to help her. The confrontation becomes one of the most dangerous situations they have faced during their journey. The attackers are powerful and heavily armed, forcing the pair into a desperate fight for survival. Eventually, they manage to overcome their opponents. But despite their efforts, they arrive too late to save Miharu. The loss hits Goreng hard. Throughout his time in the prison, Miharu had remained one of its greatest mysteries, constantly searching for something no one else seemed to understand. Before Goreng can fully process what happened, Bharat urges him back onto the platform. If they miss their chance, the mission will end there. The journey continues. As they descend farther into the depths, they encounter fewer living prisoners and more abandoned floors. Many levels show signs of suffering and neglect, revealing just how devastating life becomes at the bottom of the prison. Finally, the platform reaches level 333. Unlike the floors above, the platform comes to a complete stop. At first, the room appears empty, but after searching the cell, Goreng and Bharat discover a small child hiding beneath one of the beds. The discovery leaves them speechless. For months, everyone had insisted that no children existed within the prison. Yet here is undeniable proof that a child has somehow survived at the very bottom of the structure. As Goreng and Bharat approach her, the platform begins moving once again. At that moment, Goreng realizes that the untouched panna cotta may not be the message they were meant to deliver after all. Compared to the existence of a child hidden on the lowest level, a dessert suddenly seems insignificant. When he suggests sending the panna cotta downward, uncertainty fills the room. Eventually, they decide that the child needs the food far more than any symbolic gesture. To their surprise, keeping the dessert does not trigger any punishment from the prison. Nothing happens. No extreme temperature. No warning. The silence itself feels significant. The 3 remain together on the final level as Goreng struggles with exhaustion and injury. Meanwhile, the visions that have followed him throughout the story continue to appear. Trimagasi, Imogwiri, and Miharu seem to represent the memories and choices that have shaped his journey. As reality and imagination begin blending together, Goreng reaches a profound realization. The true message is not the untouched dessert, It is the child herself, a living contradiction to everything the administration claimed about the prison. When Goreng later awakens, he discovers that Baharat has succumbed to the injuries he suffered during their descent. The long journey has finally claimed its final victim. Now alone with the child at the bottom of the prison, Goreng understands what must happen next. The message has been found and it is ready to be sent upward. When the platform makes its final ascent, Goreng helps Molly climb aboard. Together they travel upward toward the mysterious level 0, the place where the entire system is controlled. As the platform rises, it eventually reaches a dark and silent area unlike any floor they have seen before. There are no prisoners, no food, and no signs of the people responsible for running the prison. The emptiness makes the place feel almost unreal. At this point, Goreng is exhausted from everything he has endured. Throughout his journey, he has witnessed cruelty, desperation, sacrifice, and hope. The memories of those experiences seem to follow him even now. Once again, Trimagasi appears before him, not as a real person, but as the voice that has accompanied him through his darkest moments. This time, however, the message is different. According to the vision, Goreng's role in the mission has come to an end. The message was never meant to be carried by him. It was always meant to be carried by the child. Goreng finally understands. An untouched dessert could have been ignored, explained away, or forgotten. But a child surviving at the very bottom of the prison is something impossible to dismiss. Her very existence exposes the truth about the system and everything the administration claimed to believe. Accepting this realization, Goreng steps away from the platform and allows Molly to continue the journey alone. As the platform begins rising once more, Goreng watches it disappear into the darkness above, carrying no speech, no note, and no explanation. Molly herself becomes the symbol of everything that is wrong with the prison. For the first time since entering the Vertical Self-Management Center, Goreng no longer tries to control what happens next. All he can do is hope that when the platform finally reaches the people above, they will be forced to confront the reality they have spent so long ignoring. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing movie recaps and story explanations. Also, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next movie recap.